Well, it's been on the cards a little while, but we've finally got ourselves an emerging Japan cricket podcast collaboration. And I've got the two hosts of the Japan cricket podcast becoming guests of their own show, Alan Kerr and Todd Luckhurst, here at the Sano International Cricket Ground Tea Room. One of my favourite places to come in the world, not only to watch some cricket, but just to sit here and enjoy, I suppose, the serenity of the place. It's a really enjoyable place to be. Thanks for having me, boys. First of all, I don't know who wants to kick us off, but a little bit of a role reversal, Alan, with things going on here. How are you feeling ahead of a pretty busy schedule of cricket coming up?
Konnichiwa, Daniel-san. Nihon Cricket Pod yokoso. Welcome, to the Japan Cricket Pod emerging cricket crossover. Lots going on, lots happening. I say that, not so much happening today, because whilst we are sat in the tea room, the reason we're sat in the tea room is because it's pouring with rain. So that's every cricketer's and every cricket administrator's worst nightmare. Hopefully the rain clears up and we get some sunshine over the next few days, because we've all put a lot of work, put a lot of effort into actually getting some cricket played. So we're all hopeful that can still happen. But at the moment we have just been looking at the covers and looking at the rainfall for the last few hours, which is always a bit dampens the spirits. But actually we've had all the pro players in today as well, so they're all in pretty good spirits and seem pretty excited to be here. So it's good.
Yeah, we'll talk about them in a moment. Of course, the Japan Premier League, the 11th edition, beginning tomorrow as we record, which then runs straight into the East Asia Pacific T20 World Cup qualifier, a 9-team event between here in Sano and then down and the new site in Nishin in Nagoya, which is a test event for the Asian Games a little bit later in the year. And we've also got the Women's JPL coming up in what is a pretty busy summer, and hopefully some more cricket on the women's side as well to be announced. I know there's a lot of water under the bridge and things to tie up there. But Toddy, you're one of the guys here that works on the ground as well, and you've come in a day after me here, and you've been here many times. Is it a little bit frustrating just sort of looking outside and you're sort of itching to go on your toes to have a look at the surface? But just unfortunately, just the way that the cricket is at the moment and the weather that we've got here, it's just been a little bit tricky, and you're kind of twiddling your thumbs.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting us on your pod and us on, and vice versa. It is a bit frustrating, but I'm well aware of the weather and how it works here. Unfortunately, just due to the season in this April-May period, get quite a bit of rain here in Sano, and been coming here for 11 years, so I'm quite used to it, and we've got the covers down pat, and it can be frustrating, but the ground does drain quite well. There's a bit of water out there now. If you came here, as we record now, a couple of hours ago, it was a lot more water on the ground and was quite damp. It is quite damp still, but it is improving, and I expect tomorrow definitely get some cricket going. So we'll hope the weather gods are nice to us tonight. We don't get too much more rain.
Yeah, you made the point. I remember when we were here at the Under-19 qualifier last year, and I think every day we were affected by rain in some respect, but then we eventually got all the cricket that we needed to not like from a 50-over point of view at Under-19 level. With all due respect to Papua New Guinea and Fiji, I'm not too sure if they were ever going to bat 50 overs of their innings anyway, but you're right. In the morning, if it is a little bit inclement in terms of the weather, we're still able to kind of make up for it. And going and looking maybe to the JPL first, you've left the reserve day there at the end to kind of, just in case you've got the odd fixture or half a day that gets lost, you can kind of make it up with that reserve day. And, looking at that event, such success last year, coming back for the 11th edition, East Kanto Sunrisers looking to go ahead and win it again. And the team on paper at least looks like a side that can win it. But overall, looking at the JPL, 5 pros coming in, 1 for each team. The draft was a big success again. How kind of exciting is it having seen the growth year upon year in the JPL, and I suppose the popularity and also the standard of play that you've seen in that time that the tournament's been around?
Yeah, it's been cool, hasn't it? I mean, I should almost be asking you that question from someone on the outside looking in. But the fact that we're actually sitting here talking about it on your podcast does tell a story of its own. I remember when we were first running it with no pros. I think I was sending you guys voice notes to try and shoehorn into the EC pod, and now you're back for a second year to talk about it, and we're doing whole episodes on it. So and that shows, I think, that there is an interest across a broader audience now, and so that's just really positive signs that the tournament is growing and that people want to see what we're doing. I actually had this conversation with Josh Brown at dinner last night. I asked him how he found it since he's back for his third year now, and he was saying how year one it was just a bit of a laugh, but actually now year three he's really quite determined to do well. He's like, I really need to get some runs this year. So I think that, again, it's not, the guys aren't taking it as a holiday. They're coming over here to play properly and to do well and to try and showcase what they can do, as well as to pass on some of their knowledge and experience to the Japan players. So yeah, all of that is fantastic, and I hope with the streaming numbers shows a story of its own. And again, just having guys like Dimmoth Grunner out there who's played 100 test matches here gets a lot of attention, and it's reaching new audiences, so that's fantastic.
Potential maybe of the Sri Lankan diaspora to turn out in numbers potentially here in Sana. But yeah, I had the privilege of eating with Dimmoth and some of the other pros last night, and yeah, the buy-in is the dead giveaway as to how much everyone enjoys this. And yeah, Brownie next to us kind of joked that he needed runs. I mean, last year he had the situation with his emergency passport that he had to get to make sure he got here, and he got off to a bit of a shaky start with the bat, and then came good, made 100 actually in a losing team, because Jack Wood on the opposition for Kensai ended up going on and making 100 of his own. I forget the count number, how many times you've been to Japan now, Todd?
I'm not sure. Would be a bit 15, I think, minimum, I reckon. About 11 years. Some years I came twice. I think about 14, 15, I'd say, yeah.
And then, but what's brought you back every single time?
It's come from when I first came here. It was one ground, 3-wicket block. There was a softball field where the cricket nets are, and then it got developed into this amazing facility that we have now. And I feel like, because I've been a part of it from the start, that I can't give it away yet. I'm not ready to give it away, to be honest with you. I'm sure that's day it's going to come, probably in the next few years, where I probably, won't be able to make it, here or there. But for the moment, I'm happy to come back. And for me, it's more about the cricket community here. And, it's all one big family, and I feel part of it. So I feel like if I didn't come, I'd be probably letting people down. So that's probably one of the other things. But I enjoy coming in. I love coming to Sano, so it's fantastic.
That's one thing I've sort of picked up in the last visit I was here, was that it's a many hands make light work situation. But we all know in associate cricket, there's only so much money going around. There's only so many things you can outlay in terms of financial support. And you do get a little bit of help with now the unlocking of Olympic funding and other kind of revenue streams, sponsorships and things like that. But can you maybe, Alan, talk to us about, I suppose, some of the sacrifices or, some of the lengths people are going to, whether it's, driving 3 hours to a game to play a game of cricket on a Saturday, or just the level of dedication that you've got from various people. You don't need to single any particular person out, but just the philanthropy of it all. Everyone's just kind of bought into the Japan Cricket Association and what it can potentially be with everyone around sort of pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, I think there's a few examples that leap to mind. I mean, straight away, we kind of talk about this tournament as one that we want people to come and play in. So all the guys who are qualified to play for Japan through, nationality, birth, whatever, but live overseas, they all come for this, and they're paying their own flights. Anyone who's outside of the national team is paying their own flights. So there's a financial contribution, not to mention the amount of time you have to get off work. Yeah. I mean, for guys who are going to be playing in the EAP straight afterwards, they're looking at 3 weeks off work, which if you live in Japan, that's your whole allocation for the year. And then some. And I've got guys having to take unpaid leave as well, who are losing out actually on fairly considerable amount of money just to be part of this. So there's financial sacrifices people making. Obviously, the time when you give up all your holiday to play cricket, well, it doesn't leave much opportunity for your family, your wife or your kids to go on holiday with them. So there's those sacrifices that get made as well. I know Sabaresh Ravichandran, his wedding anniversary, and it clashes with the JPL every year because when he got married, the JPL was 3 weeks later, and we moved it the following year. And he's for the last 10 years he's been just getting more and more aggro about this. So I feel for him big time. He sends me a message every year. Alan, you may remember it's my wedding anniversary. Is there any chance I can get this one day off? Just for this year.
He's that one kid that has his birthday on February 29th and only gets to celebrate it for you. Can we just change the celebration date of the anniversary? But yeah, I've just enjoyed the one time that I've come and now returning. It's, just guys picking up things that might not necessarily be within their remit of responsibilities. Rayo Sakurana Thomas picking up people from the airport. Just little bits and pieces like that. I mean, I'll jump on with the covers at some point and rip them off. You just get the players who are just interested to just jump on and just do whatever they can. I'm interested now in terms of what's kind of next. A lot of people have maybe seen Japanese cricket in, let's call it the mainstream, for the first time at an under-19 World Cup. It was their second appearance, of course, after being in it in 2020 as well. But like to think there's maybe been a little bit more attention this time around and getting that first win against Tanzania. So maybe to you, Alan, first as someone who's kind of here every day, keeping the lights on in quiet times and obviously really busy in the busy times, sort of galvanizing maybe that extra bit of attention. What's kind of the plan to kind of kick on maybe and to find a new level, whether it is through the JPL or through the under-19s program or through the men's and women's senior teams or even just the grassroots development? Pretty sort of holistic question there, but yeah, like there's a lot sort of going on. What's next?
Yeah, it's something we've kind of got to work out and strategize on, to be honest. We had the ICC regional conference in February, which was held in Japan. So we had all the CEOs from the EAP region over here, and a lot of it was focused around digital side and helping other nations to generate their own content and try and build their fan base. We had a guest speaker come in who talked about how, he asked me how many fans do we have on social media, and we've got like about 120,000 followers across all of our platforms. And he's like, well, how big is the MCG? Well, yeah, it's about 100,000 people. So, Japan Cricket's fans could fill the MCG. So you don't need a cricket stadium. Your stadium these days is online. So being able to harness that is probably a big thing, and really trying to get that support. We've talked for a long time about trying to make Japan everyone's second favourite team. And that's through as much as the way that we play and the way we conduct ourselves. But in terms of what's next, there does need to be a bit more strategizing done in terms of where we're going to prioritize, whether it's performance, whether it's development. I don't really know. There's so many opportunities, and it's trying to figure out which ones are going to pack the biggest punch, I think. But we are getting a lot of positive noises being made our way from various people around the cricketing world, which is exciting, but also brings a little bit of added pressure as well, which probably causes me getting a few hours less sleep than I used to.
You're someone that watches the national team play on the streams, and having jumped on with Alan on the podcast as well, and having been here as many times as you have over the last decade or so, can you maybe shed a light observing kind of the improvement that we've seen at the elite side, maybe seeing, the growth of Kendall's leadership or some of the guys who have kind of been within the system and just being able to be more confident, not only as men and women, but as cricketers as well, Toddy?
Yeah, I've seen over my time here, it's kind of even not just with the players, but the whole organisation's kind of grown to a professional organisation from what I wouldn't call amateur, but, not as developed as they are now, whereas now it's, there's things going all the time. There's people developing cricket-wise, business-wise. The local Sano kids, they come up through the ranks. You've got the international guys who started coming over, a few years ago, and now they're young men, and they're getting into the national team. Like, it's just, everything just develops here, and it just keeps rolling on and on. It's hard to pick a single one out, but I just think in general Japan cricket has a lot of momentum, and I don't see that stopping at all coming at the moment. And there's also, like you said before, with cricket going to the Olympics, there's all the funding through the JOC, so there's more staffing opportunities, more coaching opportunities, so it just keeps growing and growing. And I just hope and wish and I'm sure it will just keep growing into, I don't know, what it can be. Who knows how far it can go, to be honest. Hopefully we, can get some more grounds, and, access is a bit of an issue in Japan. As you know, there's not a lot of cricket fields, and the even the Japan Cricket League, there's teams every year, get new teams, don't you, new divisions, and finding places for them. So I just think it's, who knows how far it can go.
Yeah, there's something that we talk a little bit about in office, is around how we can get more volume, particularly with training. There's a lot of cricket played, but the actual training, you look at the kind of teams that we're playing against, even in Oman, we saw the men's team up against Oman, UAE. We compared how many games they play a year to how many games we play a year, and it's wildly different, and they're all training all the time as well. So how can we get the volume into our players is one question that we have been discussing quite a bit.
I was studying ahead of the East Asia Pacific qualifier, and the Indonesian men have played 100 T20Is in the last 3 years, which is unfathomable by EAP standards. I think coming into this tournament, I'm pretty sure that Fiji have played none in the same amount of time, or in the last 2 years they've played none, and Indonesia might have played between 45 and 70 in that time. They're 45 last year alone, which is, incredible to think. I know you boys talked at length about the 19s on your pod and the success there, beating Tanzania, but I think picking up on what you said, Todd, the greatest yardstick, I think, in the improvement that I've seen has been the difference of that 2020 cohort go to the Under-19 World Cup, and then the 2026 cohort going to the Under-19 World Cup. And a lot of the talk was, we saw this team 6 years ago, and, with all due respect, they didn't really cause a massive ripple. And then I remember being at this qualifier here last year on the 19 side, where they had to beat PNG and Fiji to get in, but you could already tell that the level had gone up at an unbelievable rate. And then when people were asking, what's this Japan team like after they've heard they've qualified, I said, look, there's a good chance that they'll nick a win at some stage, even if it's not in the group stage. It might be a playoff game with whoever they play. And we can talk about maybe why the format this time around isn't conducive maybe to playing as much cricket as you can while you're on that tour, because you only play that one placement game. But to win that game against Tanzania was an unbelievable achievement, and everyone knows who Hugo Tani Kelly is now after his World Cup, and he was actually one of the players here that he obviously looked really good as a player, but he got himself out a couple of times. He wasn't exactly a player that was an incredible standout at that particular tournament. So it was just, the thing that I enjoyed was just the likes of different players standing up at different times. I mean, someone like Tim Moore taking, I think it was 3 for in that first game, and he's one of those guys that he's not a guaranteed starting 11 player in that 19 setup. So there's just, I think, the level in terms of individually everyone being able to stand up, and having seen your squad for the men's T20 World Cup qualifier coming up here, I think the greatest indication of the side being strong is some of the guys who don't make the squad. And it's like they probably walk into almost any other team in the competition realistically. So yeah, some of the individuals who you've been able to identify, and I know that a lot of the Brisbane-based boys are all in the same club now with Kendall Cuttawaki-Fleming at Northern Vikings, Northern Districts in Brisbane, and just being able to have those pockets. How much do you kind of rely on the individual doing their own thing back home, and then being of a level of fitness and a level of form and nick to kind of come here and basically hit the ground running when you get to join up in the national team setup again? Yeah,
well, I'm sure he's pretending not to listen to us, but we brought in Devon Van Onselen a year ago, and he's been big on monitoring the players' workloads, and has really taken that on from a communication standpoint in terms of really making sure the players still feel connected to the JCA and the team when they're not here. That was something that was always a bit of a challenge before, because just the coaching staff, Dougal, myself, the other guys that we have in the other teams, they've just got so much other work on. It's really difficult to be able to have as many conversations as you'd like, whereas Dev's catching up with people every couple of weeks really and just checking in, and so that enables us to feel we're coming in this time around in a slightly better place. We've been able to do a lot more winter training. The Japan indoor cricket nets has been a useful source to be able to train down there and get some volume into the guys over the winter for the boys who are based in Japan. So these are all changes that have come up in the last couple of years that are starting to make a difference for sure.
coming into the JPL, and, you know, we talked about the Sarno International Cricket Ground tea room where we are recording, and, you know, final preparations are being made, not quite on the pitch given all the rain, but all the organisation off the field. And then we've seen, you know, guys starting to show up here and have a little light hit and some training and meeting maybe some blokes that they haven't met before, a couple of the pros as well. We can talk about the JPL. The format's great, 5 teams. You've got one overseas pro. You're pitting, 70 of the best players in the country, or maybe 60 plus the pros, and it was 14 in each squad. And the emphasis is always on, you know, ensuring that everyone gets a game at the tournament. But we talked about it on the Emerging Cricket Pod, Nick and I, in the last episode, where the format works really well because if you went to 6 teams, it's probably too many. If you went to 4, it's probably not big enough. But you've got 2 grounds that play concurrently, gives the opportunity for another team to kind of sit off and have half a day's break before going back into some action again. We've got a reserve day that, I mean, I dare say that we'll probably use, having, you know, looked at outside. But just being able to play that concentrated amount of cricket in 3 days and in the build-up to a T20 World Cup qualifier as well. We'll look ahead. East Kanto is probably the favourite until proven otherwise, given that they're trying to go back-to-back again. Pretty simple retention process for them, and they were able in those early picks in that next round to retain the other players that they wanted to keep, the likes of Ibrahim Takahashi as well, who's a national team player. But they, in their own mind, speaking to them in the draft, they said, look, we're pretty happy with a couple of the guys that we picked up at the back end of the draft, guys like Luitel, who actually played for them last year, and we're kind of surprised that he was still in their group. Looking at it and putting your neutral hat on as someone who gets to oversee this tournament, whereas almost everyone in this organisation has to pledge their allegiance to a particular team. How do you kind of see JPL 11 playing out?
Yeah, well, I mean, you talked about the format, and you asked me earlier about what's next. Like, I get asked that question a lot about the JPL, and you know, we often, you know, over a drink or a bite to eat, we'll knock around some ideas, right? One of the things we've been talking about is could we expand it? Could we have an extra team? Could we run it over a week or 2 weekends? And who knows? There are options. Like, from my point of view, the number of games the guys play, like 5 games over 3 days, is a lot of cricket.
Yeah.
And actually, again, Devon's on to the guys just about workload management, and particularly for the seam bowlers, they might need a bit of a breather at time to time. But actually, from my point of view, having a longer tournament might actually be more chilled, if that makes sense, because it's just so intense. And if you do get 2 days of rain, you kind of lose the whole tournament. Whereas if it goes over 9 days, you can lose a day or two. It doesn't really impact things. So I don't know if that's feasible, but it's something that I'd like to explore, at least as a possibility. In terms of this year, I think I said it on our preview after the draft, was I do like the look of South Kanto this year. I think they look pretty good. I think picking up Brownie was just an absolute steal for them, given that they weren't really expecting to get someone who most people predicted would go first or second in the draft to be going fourth. So they look well stocked in the bowling, and I think they're batting now with Brownie in there as well. I think that might be enough to make the difference, provided he's playing all his games on SICG1.
He had a bit of a logistic hurdle to even get to Japan last year, and maybe we wait if we get the chance to talk to Brownie. He can explain that story for himself, because as amusing as it was, it meant that he missed a game for West Kanto last year, and then he got off to a sluggish start, and then, as we mentioned, he peeled off that 100 a little bit later on. In terms of Todd, like, looking at, as you said, it is a packed schedule. You play 2 games a day on both grounds. What is the workload like, having to kind of get it up and ready, not only the first day of JPL, but then day 2 and day 3?
It's not so, the prep is where the time is. Yeah. So there's a lot of, you try and come as early as you can. So maybe like a week before, but logistically it's hard with workloads for me to come over early. So come 3 or 4 days before, and then you're putting your time in then to prepare everything. Once the tournament starts, it's just in the morning, just taking covers off and marking the lines pretty much, and give it a little roll if we have to. We'll give it a little roll in the morning, and then during the day I get to pretty much just sit there and I'll operate the scoreboard maybe, or the electronic scoreboard now, which is good. We don't have to change the numbers, or do some walk around and just have a look at both games, or just see what's going on. So during the day, it's okay. Then middle of the day between games, we'll just do the same bit of prep, and then at night, it's pretty much just peeling the covers back on. So during game day, during the tournament, it's pretty light, but pre-tournament, so after this tournament, obviously we've got the EAP, so those 3 or 4 days leading into that's going to be quite busy, quite hectic. But once the cricket's on, the groundsman's job is pretty much like it is today. Sit around and watching.
You get a chance as a neutral to look at these JPL teams. Is there anyone that's jumped out at you?
Yeah, so I think on our pod I said I didn't mind Kansai, but I was having another look last night, and I was having to think about it this morning, and I actually agree with Alan. I think the Super Kings are probably the team to beat. They've got a good squad. They bat well, bowl well. I think should make the final, and then it's whoever's probably them and East Kunta. I'd say they're probably the two I'd have in the final. But and then maybe the Super Kings will get over them. But as we over the history of the JPL, East Kunta are a very strong side. So, and they've got another strong squad, and they're going to be well coached. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the tournament. It's going to be very exciting, and got a lot of good players here.
Remember last year, I think South Kunta might have won the first game, but then sort of tailed away at the back end. And then I think the Cinderella story for a lot of us was actually Kansai last year. They were kind of the underdog team that came through and went unbeaten up until the final, and they didn't quite piece it together come the final. And in a way, they've almost come back as underdogs again after the unfortunate withdrawal of Curran KC, so maybe their plans were thrown out the window a little bit, and wishing Curran all the best after being called up for the Nepali team. And the only reason why he's unavailable is because that tri-series got moved, and it meant that he had some international commitments to fulfill. But Kansai have had a couple of pullouts as well in their group, so they come in with a couple of replacements, and they've probably got that underdog tag again, which I've got the impression that group under Declan, Suzuki, McComb kind of enjoys that, maybe just to slip under the radar and let the South Kantos and the East Kantos have that favourite tag potentially. You look over maybe to North Kanto as well. They struggled a little bit last year, and Reo Sakurana Thomas got injured. And then you've got the gentleman of West Kanto and Wataru Miyauchi running the show there, and the Australian sort of coaching panel that he's got at his disposal as well. But they come in with Hugo Tiny Kelly being the form man, obviously from the under-19. So again, the tournament kind of promotes the idea of parity, the way that the draft is done. You're never really going to get a massive disparity between the 5 teams, but has it just been a case of maybe having the national team captain's leadership in Kendall Katawaki Fleming, maybe at East Kanto, that has kind of just put them a little bit further in front? Or
yeah, I think that they've been very good on their recruiting over the years. I think that, I don't know if it's the main reason, but I do think that the switch to the draft was largely prompted by the strength in depth that East Kanto have as a region.
right,
And it also just made it a more even tournament. Just because they had the best players, they weren't winning it every year, but they were doing pretty well. I mean, early days, South Kanto were actually winning it most years, and they still have a lot of depth too. But the draft just does spread the talent pool, because the other thing with the old system of going through the regions, it just meant that there were pretty good players who weren't getting a game. There's only 14 spots on the team, so now there's all the teams the best players are playing across the country, which is what you want, right? And I think that when we look across at the coaching structures and the leadership, it's great. You try and get players. One of the things that we always talk about in Japan cricket is how we develop leaders, and that's what this tournament is about. It's about developing players, but it's about developing leaders and giving guys slightly different opportunities. Wataru Miyauchi is such a good example. He'll be captaining West Kanto, and he'll be, most likely batting in the top 5, I would expect, which is something he hasn't had tons of opportunities with Japan. He's had some, and he's done okay, but we'll really he'll get a good run at it in this, and leading into the EAP, there's still batting all the positions up for grabs in the Japan team, so it's a real opportunity for people to sort of stake a claim.
he's had a couple of standout innings with Tomomiuchi at that combined qualifier. I can't remember who the opponent was, but UAE, where he peeled off maybe an unbeaten 40 off.
56 or something?
Yeah, so he got there in the end.
Trouble.
Yeah, massively. And, there was the prospect of being bundled out for under 100, and he came out, and it was a little bit of a breakout knock with, for a lack of a better term.
It's the best I've seen him play. I mean, he'd made a 50 against Singapore, batting at 3 in the ACC Challenger Cup a couple of years ago in Thailand, and looked good in that game, but that was still sort of a runner ball. Whereas his 50 against UAE, I mean, this is UAE, right? They're a good side.
Yeah,
They're playing World Cups, and he made, I can't remember what it was now. I reckon it was 50 or 35 or something. I think he hit at least 2, possibly 3 sixes in the innings, and like I said, we were really up against it. I think we were 45 for 7 or something when he came in, and he got us up to around 110, 120. So, that kind of innings, you would hope it helps something to click, and he can really push on. But again, went to Thailand and perhaps didn't get as many opportunities again as he would like. So, we're still trying to find an ideal role for him, and that's one of the challenges for the coaches. But as I said, if he peels off some runs here, then puts himself right back in the driving seat again.
Yeah, to look at the Japan national team off the back of that, we've seen a few guys have a really prolific 12 months of cricket. Someone like Abhishek Anand has been a player that stood out and made some runs. Essam as well has been a player to stand out. It's not... And you talked about leaders and having the 5 respective captains, but having the likes of Declan Suzuki-McCom want to take that responsibility of bowling death overs and just having that extra maturity. Ray Sakurana-Thomas as the head coach of the under-19 men's team as well, just to kind of give you another level of leadership. And, I'm starting to... there are so many players you almost kind of forget that there's just all of these guys making their own case of being mainstays in the team. And, there are a lot of people putting their hands up. I mean, we can talk about, associate cricket as a general trend, even 5-10 years ago. The best teams seemingly had maybe 2 or 3 gun individuals, and they were the ones that were most consistent, and they're the ones that make more runs. But even when you look at, associate cricket on the whole, especially at this T20 World Cup that's just gone, there was a little bit of maybe disappointment that no one got a win over a full member, but there were guys standing up and performing that we would probably not have picked before the tournament started. Someone like Shadley Van Schalkwyk for the USA almost didn't make the squad and wasn't going to make the 11, and then
been left out.
Yeah, and he's just been left out again of the League 2 series. He only gets a game because Jesse Singh gets injured, and he led the T20 World Cup in wickets. Or Yuvraj Samra, who comes in as a young kid, makes 100 for Canada. So I think individually, and I think Japan is probably a good example of it, almost a microcosm of the trends of associate cricket at the moment, where you get a lot of guys standing up, and even just talking to players here at these events or just over dinner, everyone's really switched on and everyone plays their part. And you just know that I think 10 years ago you probably didn't have that level-headed maybe nature in a lot of these guys, because everyone was a little bit inexperienced. But now there's a little bit more international cricket in the calendar. I mean, even coming back from, say, Thailand in that quad series, or, okay, the combined qualifier is not a perfect situation for EAP for reasons that, we've mentioned in both of our respective shows. But you guys being a part of the ACC as well, how do you think that's kind of helped in terms of, just filling the calendar up with some more games and some extra pathways, and that exposure against a different region and their style of cricket as well?
Yeah, I've mentioned this before, probably on our pod, Toddy. You mentioned the biggest visible difference in Japan cricket being the under-19 sides from 2020 to 2026 at their World Cup campaigns. And I mean, those two sides, the biggest thing was that the 2026 cohort had played so much cricket together. They travelled so much. And that is largely thanks to ACC competitions. The ACC being part of that, it has challenges, for sure. But you can't fault the opportunities. There's so much cricket they're putting on. And, in 2019, 2020, that group of players, like half of them had never left Japan before. Some of them didn't have passports. They'd never played together before the qualifier, and the only time they played together again was immediately before the World Cup, where we went on tour to Brisbane. So yeah, the difference there is really noticeable, and that's part of that volume that we talked about already. And that's, what puts us really in good shape going forward, because there are these young guys coming through. They are playing more cricket together as a unit. You mentioned Indonesia's 45 T20Is last year. We're not playing that many, but the more the group play together, the more opportunities there are for people to stand up. And as you mentioned previously, you get in associate cricket, it's guys who just play for 20 years, right? One guy's just in the side forever. You look at like the O'Brien brothers in Ireland, for example. They played every game for decades. As we are trying to build depth, and that's what we need to survive long term and to thrive long term.
I think joining the ACC has been probably the best thing that's happened. Like one of the best things for Japan cricket is in getting fixtures for games. Because the challenge is, Alan, isn't it? Is number one, getting enough fixtures. Number two, finding someone to play against who is at your level or better than you, so you get better. The challenge in this region is that there's not a lot. Oh, there is. There's a lot of good countries playing, but there's also some who are just emerging through the system, and they want to play cricket. They want to play internationals, but you need to play to get better. And playing some of these opponents is detrimental, really, because the results of they're challenged. They're having their own challenges in just starting their cricket journey, where you're at a stage now where you really want to progress your cricket journey. So I think joining the ACC is amazing, because all of a sudden it opens up all this extra cricket. But it's not just men's; it's under 19s, it's women's. Like women's under 19s. I think under 16 boys. Like, it's just amazing. Like, it's just open up this whole plethora of cricket that you get invited to all these tournaments, and it's just going to make Japan cricket a lot better on that international stage and experience wise.
Yeah, that 16s event is, I don't think they do it in any other region, certainly not to the level that the ACC do, and just that exposure to different opponents. But even just the little things of going through maybe your first ever ACU meeting or your first ever induction, and just those lessons, you need to kind of, sometimes you fear that teams who come in a little bit bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, they can't act like they've been there before, simply because they haven't been there before, right? So you get those experiences, even just doing like a media day, or there's a few more questions being asked of the players, and if you sort of get into those habits when you're a little bit younger, and you can kind of experience all of that. Looking to the East Asia Pacific qualifier coming up, and one big talking point is we've got a new venue down in Nishin in Nagoya, test event for the Asian Games, but two groups playing out there. Japan are going down and playing at that facility. We should probably talk about the format of the tournament as well. 19 tournament, 3 groups of 3. The only thing that we don't know is what the next level looks like, if there is a next level, because the announcement hasn't been made. And we can talk about the conspiracies as to why that hasn't happened yet, but just dealing with the cards that you've been dealt, what is it like for you, Alan, and the organisation, when there's questions of like, well, what do we actually have to do? What is an unmitigated success of this tournament? Do you basically, as a group, just talk to each other and sit around in a circle and just say, well, let's just try and win as many games as we can, because quite frankly, that's all we know, and that's all we can do, knowing that we don't know what the future holds after this qualifier?
I feel like that's what we have to do. We're at a point now with our men's team particularly, that when we're playing regional qualifiers, we want to be trying to win them. We should look at every team and say, okay, we can beat them. We look at every team and think, okay, well, we're ranked higher than all of them now, apart from PNG. Yeah. We saw PNG struggled in Oman, and so there is a belief they're still a good side. And all of these teams, I've spoken to the head coach about it, and he's like, all of these teams have dangerous players, and T20 cricket is such a volatile format that one big over can completely turn the game around. So games are never really done. You're never really safe, but I think we've shown that we've probably got a bit more. PNG aside, we've probably got a bit more big game temperament and the experience that we have in our group. As you said, like Fiji may have not played a game in the last 18 months or whatever it is. So we can only do what we can do, which is trying to win games. And at the end of the tournament, hopefully that puts us in a position where we're going to the next phase, whatever that next phase is. It is annoying, and it is slightly hair pulling, but ultimately it kind of makes it simple. You don't get distracted by net run rates, finishing in certain spots. It's just a case of go out, win the tournament, and then nothing can go wrong from there.
What is it like with the new ground? And I take it do you have any role in Nishin whatsoever? It's just a case of let's just see what happens down there.
So ACC have been the ones who've been pushing it through the Asian Games, so they've got control of the ground.
Right.
But the Japan Cricket have had involvement. Adam Burse down there, he's project managing the project of the new wicket and the new ground, so he's been involved through the whole project. So he's saying it's going well. So there is Japan Cricket influence in what's going on down there, and I think it's good for cricket in Japan because eventually Japan Cricket will use the venue. Like once after the Asian Games, the cricket pitch will be still there. I'm guessing, hope so. So it will be a venue where cricket will be played. So it's good that, and there is a hybrid pitch there, but it's went in. So it's good that we're overseeing it because we'll be managing it in the long term.
Yeah, because you want to future-proof yourselves as well, right? It's all well and good having that facility for a continental games, but at the same time, it's like, well, if it's only going to be for one event and it's only because the games are in IHE Prefecture, that's the only reason why they need the ground there. Is it going to be... Can you maybe kind of explain what the potential challenge might be? Because you guys have made this a really good home here in Sano, but having that extra kind of baby that you have to look after and a ground, and you're kind of hoping that it's of a really good standard, and you can maybe take the odd game or the odd series there every once in a while. What's that juggle going to be like? I know you're probably maybe thinking about that once you get to it, but post September, there's obviously questions about the legacy of that and the ground and what you can do with Japanese cricket there as well.
Yeah, the legacy piece has been the biggest project, I guess, for our CEO over the last, I don't know, however long, 9-12 months. He's been spending a lot of time in Nagoya trying to figure out what this legacy does look like. My understanding at this point is that we will be getting 18 days a year, I think, to use the facility. But of course, what we don't know is what the facility will look like. Will the square stay? Will a synthetic get put in? Because one of the challenges is if we're only using it 18 out of 365 days, you're not going to employ a groundsman to be down there all year around. Yeah. So what does that look like? Now maybe the hybrid is the answer, and perhaps someone going down there a couple of times a month just for a day or so might be enough to keep that playable. I don't really know. So there's obviously questions there to answer. There are, conversation going on trying to find another venue in the same area that we can use that could perhaps be used as a training facility during the Asian Games and maybe used for domestic cricket post Asian Games. I believe there's an announcement about that today or yesterday, which I still don't know too many details about, but there is work going on to try and make sure that all of this buzz that is created through the Asian Games isn't lost, because it's such a huge opportunity and you want to make sure that cricket lasts when it captures the attention of new fans, that they keep it, right? So we that's what we want to be doing. So yeah, the facility is obviously a huge plus, but there are challenges around upkeep and maintenance, which we have those challenges here, let alone the facility that we only get to use for a few weeks of the year. That
reminds me in that, yes, you'd like to think that Olympics participation or cricket as an Olympic sport will garner some level of attention for the average Japanese sports fan. But what we've also seen in the last couple of months of the T20 World Cup was some of the matches broadcast with Japanese commentary and a little bit more exposure from that point of view. Japan, I'm not too sure what this looks like, but Japan have been earmarked as one of the regions where they want more of that level of broadcasting exposure through the Japanese language. And I'm talking to two guys who, in terms of their Japanese, you guys can order it in izakaya just fine, but neither of you are fluent in Japanese, but you guys would understand how significant it is beating that language barrier and having Japanese commentary on a World Cup, being able to showcase the best of the best in international cricket with the tender enrichment of Japanese language broadcasting over the top to explain the idiosyncrasies and the really small, fine parts of the game. Have you anecdotally or through numbers kind of seen how that's potentially improved the popularity or the attention that the game has for the, let's call them the normal Japanese sports fan?
So I haven't seen the actual numbers, although I have requested them several times. But what I do have is a few anecdotal pieces. So I spoke to Shun Hashima, who was doing the commentary. I hooked him up with that gig, and he said that he actually got some feedback after the first game that his commentary was too directed for cricket fans.
Right.
And so he had to sort of go back into a more explaining what the game is for newcomers. And then the feedback was all really, really positive for the remaining games that he did. And certainly he got told that people were very surprised at how much traffic they were getting from Japan on the Japanese YouTube feed, YouTube, wherever it was. And there were lots of people in the comments asking specific questions in Japanese. Now, I don't know where they found this audience from because we've been trying to reach them for years. But the ICC perhaps, have a bit more marketing power than we do. And we're able to capture some people. But I think part of that is just showing high-level, top-level versions of the sport. We've been asking for years that we wanted to be able to showcase the best of cricket. Like, what we're doing, we're pretty good. I think watching Japan's pretty good fun. I enjoy doing it. But there is still a noticeable difference to when you're watching, England, India, Australia, Pakistan, those guys who are superstars, and are paid top sports people earn. So, I think there is a curiosity there around the sport, and I think that was prompted through the Olympics and the upcoming Asian Games. And yeah, by all accounts, it was really well received, and I think that's led in part to the increased interest from ICC media and more people around the world in Japan cricket, and we're going to be seeing that during this EAP tournament, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a huge step in exposing cricket. Japan has a population of 122 million people, so potentially there's the potential to have 122 million new cricket fans or people watching the sport or understanding what the sport is, to gather knowledge on the sport and think, what, this sport, they hit the ball like baseball, like they hit the ball over the fence. I want to get involved in cricket. It could just explode the interest in cricket and participation. So I think it's a great step forward, and who knows how far it could go.
Yeah, and we've seen that at the elite end, we've got guys who have, let's call them, there's a few Sano locals who are playing international cricket for Japan who their greatest exposure has been this ground and having it so close and just a different sport. And the likes of Ryuki Ozeki and Chihaya Sekine in the Under-19 World Cup team, to be able to take that back to, their communities and say, look, we're playing international cricket for our country in a different sport. But it is one of those things where, a lot of people make the comparison to baseball and the bat and ball aspect of it, but I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, where, there are so many fine bits of rules and laws, and it is a little bit tricky to learn from an entry point stand of view, but when you kind of grow up in it as well, it just becomes second nature. And you're kind of hoping that, with this cricket being broadcast in Japanese, there's just that level of understanding, maybe a little bit, for the community who are a little bit younger, and they kind of grow up into it as well, maybe. So from the outside, you and I would know, Todd, that, the reason why we come back, potentially every year is because we can see that. We were stood around last night at Sano train station, and a guy came up to us, and he's like, I know cricket. I enjoy cricket. He's like, I'm a 6-year-old guy trying to learn English. He's like, you're involved in cricket, and his eyes lit up. He's like, I love cricket. Like I've watched enough of it. I kind of get what's going on now. And I don't know about you, Todd.
Very famous in Sano.
Yeah, cricket very famous in Sano. That's right. But I don't know about you, Todd, but when I say I'm going to Japan to cover cricket, I don't really get the same sideways turns of confusion anymore, because granted, talking to mates who probably follow the game at a decent level as well, but it's not that far-fetched to say anymore, just anecdotally, I'm going to Japan to cover a cricket event. It's not, it doesn't sort of ring that alarm bell of like, what, Japan has cricket, and there will be people like that, but so does everything, right? So, look, having come here once before and come back, I'm just super excited. And the one thing that I like about East Asia Pacific, and the one thing that brings me in with EAP, is that you've got probably the most diverse region in that you've got Japan, and then on the other end you've got guys over the other side of the international date line in the Cook Islands on a very tiny main island. And granted, they've got a lot of, for lack of a better term, help with New Zealand locals who qualify for the Cook Islands, but it just goes to show how wide-reaching this game can be. I mean, we're in Albert Park in Suva, and there's kids, with plastic cricket bats whacking them around. Fiji beat the West Indies in 1960. Like, there is history in this region, and you guys have just rolled out a new website, the new JCA website, literally today. And, some of the details you guys have, people are looking for that treasure trove. International matches as far back as, 1996, was it? And you guys have played a number of different opponents, Afghanistan being one, and we've seen, you guys would have played them in the very low levels of the old World Cricket League system. Would have been back, back in 2010-ish? Right. Yeah. And to see that growth too, but it just goes to show, I mean, I was looking at Alex Sherrod-Patmore's Cricket Archive profile. His debut in 2012 was against Suriname in the old World Cricket League system back in the day. Like, it just goes to show how much history there is here. It's just been a case of, and one of the reasons why Emerging Cricket started was to try and profile and big up that. But in terms of keeping those records on site now, that's just great for the legacy holders. Again, for other people to log on for the first time, it's like, oh, Japan has a cricket team. Well, yeah, if you look back far enough, they've been playing international cricket probably longer than you've been alive as well. So, predictions for the EAP? I know you guys come in as the second highest ranked team in the competition, and we know in terms of EAP rankings, I still think that they're a little bit murky because they're quite simply in the region hasn't been enough international cricket and enough cross-pollination between other regions. And we know what the PNG situation is like. Tony Ura's back, but they're still missing some key players, so they are very gettable. And as you said before, you guys are targeting a win at this tournament on home soil. You have Vanuatu and Fiji in your group, which is a bit of a banana skin in that Vanuatu is a team that, if they were to show up as strong as we think that they can be, they have every chance of also topping that group. Top two teams go through into the Super Sixes of each group, but then you obviously take the carryover points of what you acquire against the other progressing teams as well. So you want to obviously top the group to bring those extra 2 points over. Yeah, what do you think the challenges are on a new surface as well? So there's a lot of different variables. Fiji maybe coming from the synth though might find it a little bit tricky. Vanuatu play on a hybrid deck in Port Vila, so that there might be a little bit of experience there. But I know you guys aren't going to rest on your laurels, but you look at this EAP qualifier now, and I think collectively it's probably the strongest collection of teams that we've probably had in some time. If you go across the 9 teams, there's enough threats in all 3 groups to really ask enough questions to potentially win the tournament.
I think so, definitely. And I think for us, perhaps with the biggest change, like we haven't done a regional qualifier of this size, I reckon, since 2017, maybe, which was the first tournament I went to. I was here in 2014, but I didn't go to that one. And we're coming into this time, like we played in the regional final 2 years ago. Obviously, we played in the combined one last year. I guess it was 3 years ago, the last regional final in PNG. And we were very much underdogs in that tournament, right? And we ended up coming second in that tournament, albeit tied with Vanuatu. We got the second on net run rate. I feel like this time we're coming in with target on us. I feel like this time everyone's going to look at us slightly differently. We can't fly under the radar anymore. And that brings a pressure on us. Yeah. Our guys have to understand that, there's an expectation now which wasn't there before. And it's different. It's a different challenge. And I think you see it, I think that our guys carry that pretty well. I think they enjoy that extra pressure because they've earned it. They've earned the right to have that pressure by their performances on the pitch, by the fact the last time we played in a regional qualifier, including the pre-T20Is before the tournament, we won 8 out of 8 in Korea. So, that's pressure is something. Pressure is a privilege, right? And I feel like we've got to that point now, and it'll be different. But like I said, I think for us, we need to believe that we are good enough to get past everyone, whilst also being respectful and aware of the dangers that each other team poses.
Yeah, and I think there's another pressure too when you're playing at home in such a big tournament. Like there's perceived pressure of that. People come in and watch, family watch. Japan cricket fans. The expectation is that you'll perform well, which we all expect anyway. But I think it adds another layer, an interesting layer psychologically of that. That barrier of not wanting to let people down, which is actually a real thing when you're playing in front of family and friends and fans at home. So yeah, I think the tournament would be interesting tournament. Vanuatu, like you said, they got players back, so it's going to be interesting to see how they go. Group B here in Sano, we've got Indonesia, Philippines and Samoa, and us three will be here for that. So I think that's an interesting group, especially with Indonesia playing so much cricket. Samoa, who knows what's going to happen with them. The big boys can whack the ball. And so that's an interesting group. Then you got Group C, Cook Islands, PNG and South Korea, where you think PNG might go through, but Cook Islands could upset them. They've had some good results too. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting tournament. And I think Japan, should be, one of the teams to beat. So I think it'll be good.
I do think one thing that plays into our favour a little bit is the age profile and hopefully the fitness levels of our team. We did see in Oman that by the end of that regional final, a few teams were almost walking wounded and were struggling to get players out in the park. It's a lot of cricket. So those teams that do go through into the Super 6 stages, they're going to be playing 6 matches across the tournament, and I haven't actually looked at the draw and what it could look like and when we're going to play who if it goes according to seedings. But it will be interesting, I think, as things go on. That and we saw it in Korea again in the last qualifier. We finished really strong and everyone else did fade away. So I think that durability is something that's probably in our favour. But again, you can never rest on your laurels because it only takes a couple of injuries and suddenly, the depth gets challenged. But I do think that we're in good shape, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I think once we jump off this pod, I've probably got a few questions about, say, South Korea, because I haven't watched them in person as yet, because in the last couple of regions, we've had the sub-regionals where we've been sort of split north and south. You guys hosted Cook Islands last year as part of that triangular with Thailand, which is one of the few times outside of a tournament coming up like this where we get guys from the south part of the EAP region and the north come together and play against each other. And it was probably a good chance for us to kind of see where everyone is at. Cook Islands are a team in their own respect are on the rise. Mara Ave's a great leader. He actually has a lot of shades of Kendall, actually, in terms of how they kind of operate. But yeah, they pose a threat in their own right as well. And then, the likes of Vanuatu, Patrick Madatava back for them is a big in. And I think Fiji will probably come into that tournament as probably the third best team in that group. But the likes of Penny Volavola Vunuwanga, under-19 World Cup captain when Fiji actually represented the EAP region at the under-19 World Cup. That would have been 2016 or 18, wasn't it? Yeah, it might have been 6. I think you might be right. I think it was 16. Penny was captain of that under-19 World Cup team. But yeah, looking, hopefully the weather kind of stays good for us. And I just think it's going to be a belter of a competition. I know that it's slightly... The circumstance of the tournament being like this with 9 teams in one spot probably isn't the best from an EAP point of view, but we've got a potential humdinger of a tournament coming up. I mean, looking at the rankings, and again, they're not sort of the best indication of where teams are at. Like Vanuatu are 66 on the rankings, and I think anyone will probably tell you that them and Samoa, who are 68th, are a lot stronger than that. But as you say, fitness is going to play a big part as you come to the back end of the competition. And also, too, we've got the teams that get bundled out in the groups hanging around for a tri-series as well. And that was going to be a crucial part of this tour for everyone, right? Because no one wanted to play 2 games and go home, right? So I don't know. I suppose you guys have probably taken the responsibility of having to organise that tri-series, maybe in consultation with ICC EAP. I'm not too sure, but yeah, you guys will be able to probably shed light on how that all worked to ensure that everyone gets 6 games. Yeah,
we've worked pretty hard on that. It was very much a case of after the experience in Oman, we were seeded low, and we got the positive change of having to change our flights to stay, whereas other people had to change their flights to go home, which is really not that much fun at all. I spoke at length with Emily O'Brien, who's tournament director for the ICC for this tournament, and she was very much of the belief that it's just a financial nonsense to have to make those changes. So, and getting the opportunity to play only 2 games. So we were very strong on making sure that everyone got an opportunity. If you do go out, that you get to play at least a few more games. And so, in the end, I think that's basically playing off for 7th, 8th, and 9th places is how that'll work out. And the onus is on us. We'll be getting to get some of our own umpires out there to stand with potentially some of the ICC tournament umpires, or more likely the tournament umpires will be off field and be able to give us some advice and some training to our guys. So that's really beneficial to be able to get. There's some really good umpires coming this year who've done pretty high level stuff. So to be able to give feedback directly to our guys will be pretty helpful.
We haven't really had too much of an opportunity to talk about the women's side of things, but that's more down to the fact that we haven't really been able to sort of lock in what an international or a national schedule for the women looks like. But we've got a women's JPL coming up, and it's a slightly different format to the men's tournament, where you've got some, say, invited teams. You've got some partnerships with teams in Australia and South Africa. What's that kind of been like in terms of the development on the women's side of the game?
Yeah, the women's stuff is very much progressing. Again, there's an ACC tournament coming up. It's not 100% confirmed yet, but it's supposed to be at the start of June. So an opportunity for the girls to get out and play some cricket. That was supposed to be in March, but it got postponed.
Start of June.
Yeah.
Okay, May the 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That's just on May clear. That's typical ACC.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Literally the start of June. The 1st of June they'd be flying, so a month today. But haven't booked any flights yet because I haven't got confirmation. Anywho, so yeah, the women's we had our under 16 and under 19 girls tournaments at the start of this year. Which was great. Good standard was up from last year, and a number of players was up as well. So real positives on those, and we're hoping that that starts to reflect in the national team performances. The girls are, again, we talk about the rankings a bit. You're talking about with the men. I do think that the rankings are. There's teams that are definitely ranked lower than they really are, and I do think that we're one of those teams in both the men and the women, and it's just hard to move up the rankings. Yeah. But an opportunity to play against some high ranked teams and potentially try and get get on a bit of a roll to move up those rankings is something that we're looking at, and it's challenging because there's people with work commitments, challenges to actually get on the plane. So that's something we have to deal with. But the Women's Premier League will come up at the end of end of May. And that's shaping up to be a really great tournament with 4 teams involved. And again, that's something that's going to grow and grow. And I think that we'll be talking about more and more as we continue to build that in the future.
A couple of exciting names, which I believe are still off record from a women's JPL point of view.
Yeah, I haven't announced them formally. Don't see any reason why we can't. But
everyone, we've all leaned in over the table here.
But yeah, there's a couple of BBL players coming, and there's a player with significant amount of full member international experience, captain of full member, multiple World Cups, bit of an icon of the game, coming over as well. So all will be revealed in due course. We're actually still struggling to fill. We've had quite a few dropouts because, again, ACC structures. We had a couple of players from Singapore coming who've just had to withdraw because they're going to have to play some international cricket. But yeah, I do believe the standard of that tournament will be going up and up each year. So we're looking forward to welcoming ACT, the 4th team this year. So that's really exciting to have them coming over and bringing a different sort of flavour to the whole thing.
Looking forward to it. Anything else? We've just glanced over. We've got over an hour in the can already. I've just seen the rain has just started up again, so poor Toddy can't go out and make a difference.
It's pissing down out there. To be quite frank with everyone out there, it's got quite heavy, but I'm sure we'll be fine for tomorrow.
Luckily, we've been in the quaint location of the Sano International Cricket Ground Tea Room. It's one of I've been around different parts of the world. I still think this is one of my favourite spots to sit down and enjoy a nice cold beverage or a bite to eat watching some cricket. And yeah, looking forward to a busy few weeks here, not only domestically through the JPL, but also an EAP qualifier on the road to T20 World Cup 2028, which is to be held by 2 EAP members in Australia and New Zealand. So there's a nice kind of carrot at the end there dangled. We just don't quite know what the pathway to qualification looks like. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know, by the time this episode goes out, between the pair of us collabing on it, we might get an answer. Maybe it's us manifesting a result. But anything to add or any final comments before we call it a day and end up talking about cricket just over a beer instead of a microphone?
I guess just get everyone onto the YouTube feed. If you're following in India, it'll be on Fan Code, but everyone else watch the JCA YouTube feed for the JPL, Japan Premier League, which starts tomorrow, and then keep following Japan Cricket app and any other platform socials for finding the results during the EAP. I think the ICC EAP account does a pretty good job now as well, but we'll be active as ever.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of attention and a few extra bodies here covering the EAP tournament as well.
Yeah, just jump on the stream. Daniel will be in comms, and I'll be up there doing some specials at some stage. So jump on the stream and have a look and enjoy the cricket. And I'm sure over the next 2 weeks it's going to be a lot of good cricket. So
I don't know why that's reminding me, but we were doing the under 19 comms. You came up a couple of times. I was doing it mostly solo. And I think there was a point there where I think it was maybe a PNG Fiji game, and there was a bit of a lull in the game, and we almost sort of trying to get code words into the commentary there. And I think launched into a couple of Kent Hannum specials that I found Toddy over the other side of the field laughing, and it's like come up on the broadcast laughing from the other side of the ground. So
You actually have to stop the game.
and Toddy started laughing about a Kent Hannumism that we turned into a commentary line that I don't know, maybe over a couple of drinks we'll reminisce with Kent again when he comes back. But yeah, looking forward to it. ICC TV for the EAP qualifier as well, live and free around, and I think still on Fan Code in that respect as well. I think in a couple of different regions, and yeah, Fan Code have got the JPL as well. So yeah, well, if you don't like my voice, it's a bit unfortunate for them. They get stuck with it. Although there's Japanese commentary for the JPL.
Japanese commentary for the JPL. Yes, on ground 1 games only.
Okay.
Not on both grounds. And there'll be Japanese commentary for the EAP as well.
Beautiful. And so if anyone's sick of me, they can go learn some Nihongo, better than my 330 straight days of Duolingo, which has seemingly got me absolutely nowhere in the grand scheme of things, but that's okay. I feel the dopamine hits of Duolingo get you, but as you said, the gamification of it just turns it into a bit of a gimmick. And yeah, I can sit here and tell you that I've done 330 days of Duolingo, but have I really done 330 days of Duolingo? Probably not. But thanks, boys. We'll make sure that this is collabed and thrown on both of our respective feeds so people can't quite miss out on all of this chat. And yeah, with a bit of luck, the weather finds up and we get some good cricket. But yeah, thanks for jumping on and yeah, talking all sorts of nonsense.
Thank you.